If we look at that joint op-ed in the Sunday Times from the German and British foreign ministers, and we strip away all the political window dressing, box ticking, expressions of sadness that we'd expect to be there, the article was mostly supportive of Israel's position, with just a few criticisms which may or may not be valid. You could say they are, in some senses, somewhat hypocritical or at least too vague to be helpful. For example, they say that too many civilians have been killed. The Israeli government should do more to discriminate sufficiently between terrorists and civilians, ensuring its campaign targets Hamas leaders and operatives, which is exactly what Israel says it's doing. Indeed, the UK's record is hardly one of strength in this respect. In the Iraq War, Britain lost 179 service personnel altogether from a population of over 67 million. Israel's lost something like 121 soldiers so far. The British, as far as we know, didn't abort missions when they saw civilians or children, didn't drop leaflets, make phone calls to evacuate, etc. So some people have said, including some top generals, including Sir Richard Kemp, the British former commander of forces in Afghanistan, that Israel does far more than even Britain has done and has apparently performed better in terms of civilian to combatant death ratios. So those sorts of sounding offs from Britain, some have said, are not actually particularly helpful, bearing in mind the major gist of the article was that, yes, there should be some sort of ceasefire or truce at some point, but they don't want to stop Israel in its mission, which they completely back.
And in this respect, Jonathan, it seems that even Israel's staunchest supporters want to see something changing. They perhaps don't know to say what exactly, but this level of intensity, if you will, not be able to get dragged much longer.
I think in some respect it's lip service, but also it's because it is very hard to watch from outside. I mean, they said also in that article that we must get more aid to ordinary Palestinians. And both countries have therefore increased their funding for humanitarian aid to Gaza. But again, it's a question of whether that's actually a particularly helpful strategy. Israel says that the aid is going there as quickly as it's being delivered, that nothing that Israel is doing is holding the aid up, that in fact the aid is just not being provided as fast as Israel could allow it to go through. We don't know who's telling the truth in that respect. They call for unhindered deliveries into Gaza directly via as many crossing points as possible. All of these things are, of course, understandable because while they back up Israel's ability and obligation to carry out this war for its people, to protect itself, they also see the suffering that's going on in Gaza and want to help prevent that. But unhindered access can't possibly mean unchecked access. And Israel is having to check even more thoroughly than usual everything that goes into Gaza because of the tendency of Hamas to hijack aid, to steal it, to take it away from the people it's there for. So again, no matter how much money Western countries, European countries pump into aid for Gaza, it's not necessarily getting to the people who they say it's intended for. And in some respect, Israel will say that it can't possibly have business as usual in terms of crossing points. It can't be like it was on, say, the 5th of October or the 6th of October. It has to be how it is after the 7th.
The tendency of Hamas to steal humanitarian aid from its civilians. Tendency. I will allow myself to be less diplomatic than you, Jonathan Sacerdoti. Thank you very much for this. I-24 News, a senior UK correspondent.